watching the president's face during his briefing this morning when he was asked about Kim Jong-un. It's a bit like reading the tea leaves, but it seemed clear that he's had briefings to the extent that Kim Jong-un is incapacitated in some way. He said that his location is not known at this stage, and that he expects that there will be some further announcements from the North Koreans in the next few weeks. But he did say he hoped he is well and fine. So I think we can conclude from that US intelligence has confirmed that Kim Jong-un is incapacitated in some way, but not dead at this point, and his location not known. That's a lot of uncertainty. Leadership transitions in dictatorships are very delicate, messy, and potentially lethal at the best of times. And this one coming right now would be very challenging for the region and the United States to manage.
Would there be any positive? I mean, the talk straight away went to the possible successor for Kim Jong-un. Do we know whether we'd see as bellicose a regime, this nuclear brinkmanship? Would there be a chance for a reset? You know, you can focus right now perhaps on economic growth amid COVID-19. There's going to be a lot of countries with a big focus on growth, and that might be a way back. Is that too optimistic?
Well, I think the successor most people are talking about is Kim Jong-un's sister, who hasn't had a big public profile until recently, when she's been profiled a little bit more by official state organs. He also has a brother as well. The alternate power source is the military leadership in Korea. So anyone coming into that role would need to demonstrate their assertiveness and their strength. So you might see in the short term actual more levels of aggression, verbal or missile testing, to show that they're not afraid to stand up to the United States and others and prove themselves with North Korea's military leadership. That was certainly, to an extent, the pattern that Kim Jong-un, when he followed in. When he came in, expectations were very low on him. He was unknown. He'd been educated in Switzerland. He took quite aggressive moves with the military early on, and quite aggressive language with the United States to assert his leadership and shore up his support from the generals.
So when you think of someone coming into that role, is it almost impossible to imagine them as someone who's pulling North Korea back from the brink? To put it simply, you're not going to get power unless you're pretty ruthless.
Absolutely. And look, if Kim Jong-un is incapacitated at the moment, and you think about whether loyalists to him are hiding him so that he can't be threatened by someone who might want to take power from him, the court politics of all this is intense and has been in the past and could well be in the future, very lethal for those around the leader. Transitions are difficult. North Korea has managed to do hereditary transitions twice. That's very unusual. And interestingly, there's never been a dictatorship that's transitioned to a female leader, which at this stage, if he is no longer able to govern, is one of the possible options. So very challenging. For the United States, they're not in a strong position if there is instability on the Korean Peninsula. They're in a dispute with South Korea over military basing arrangements and funding for that. They don't have a senior Asia expert at the Pentagon at the moment. They haven't since the end of last year. And as we know, their aircraft carriers that are in the region and responsible for providing security are having their readiness affected by the coronavirus. So it is a challenging situation, not to mention the difficulties between the US and China, which are critical to resolving anything on the Korean Peninsula.
James, speaking of China, a really interesting moment in the Australia-Chinese relationship, this statement or this interview from the ambassador with a threat, let's be honest, to Australia over this COVID-19 inquiry we're pushing for. The foreign minister, in a statement, pushed back against what she called economic coercion. This felt like calling it out more directly than we have done in the past. Did you see this as a stiffening of resolve from Australia?
Absolutely. And, you know, I mean, if there's one thing Australians don't like, it's the government telling you what to do. The only thing we like even less than that is somebody else's government telling us what to do. Let's be clear, this was a direct threat from the Chinese Communist Party government. Extraordinarily, the ambassador is threatening to do by design what they've already done by negligence, that is destroying our economy, reducing our exports and declining our services industry. So I think the government is right to push back. All the government has asked for in this case is an international investigation into how this virus started and whether the early responses were responsible for spreading it further and creating damage to the world economy and to the world society. That's not an unreasonable request for transparency, but it's obviously very politically challenging for the Chinese Communist Party. So I think we're right to stand up on this. The government's doing a good job on its lines on this, and for an ambassador to be threatening damage to our economy is just an extraordinary thing.